Hey, and welcome back to another Genshin video, and it's another team guide. This time, we'll be taking a look at Fatal Fury Tartaglia and Fireworks Childe, two names given to the same team, but I actually want to separate the two into two different teams in this video. This team is seriously a lot of fun and is very flashy, and is able to dish out a lot of DPS most of the time. However, if having a bunch of numbers and particles on screen is not to your fancy and you prefer one big number, then this team may not be for you. But maybe I can sway you in favor of trying this team. Who knows? In this video, I will be referring to Fatal Fury Tartaglia as this team right here, which consists of only Hydro and Electro characters just like the Fatal Fury Tartaglia boss fight. While this team over here will be Fireworks Childe, as it adds some pyro action to the mix. I like team nicknames to be aesthetically accurate, so in my mind, these two team nicknames are for different but very similar teams. But without further ado, let's dive right in. Fatal Fury Tartaglia is quite easily the team I keep going back to, as it provides quick attacks, a lot of sparkly damage, and is a heck of a lot of fun to use. If the need of a better healer or a pyro character is needed, I will opt out into the Fireworks build and have just as much fun using it. These teams are really strong and are viable in Spiral Abyss. It falls short from other teams as it lacks a consistent shield without enough energy recharge on Beidou, and the Fatal Fury variant lacks a dedicated healer. Fireworks Childe can cause the overload reaction, which could put smaller mobs out of position, but despite its shortcomings, it makes up for it by being able to dish out tons of damage, and with enough skill, good timing, and maybe a little luck with artifacts, the shortcomings are barely noticeable and is overtaken by how much fun this team is. If you're still with me, let's continue on with the team roles. Just so you are aware, my team isn't fully built, but isn't too far off. Tartaglia is basically fully built, just shy of being maxed at level 90, and with a 4-star weapon being my preferred weapon on him despite having access to Skyward Harp. Fischl is maxed at level 90, but that was due to using DPS Fischl, and her support artifacts is an ever slow work in progress. Xingqiu is relatively finished at level 70, and with artifacts that aren't all at level 20, and then there's Beidou, who I've regretfully been neglecting, but she still stands on her own in this team. In this team, Childe kinda takes the role of main DPS. The reason I say kinda is that the supports on this team do a significant amount of the damage thanks to how they work off-field. This does mean that to make this team as effective as possible, you will need to put a decent amount of investment on your supports. This team can still work with low investment on your supports, but you will notice quite a decrease in DPS. Speaking of supports, Fisch is there to provide Oz power and nothing else. Having her at C6 is ideal, but not required. Xingqiu is one of the best supports in the game and is highly valued in most teams. In this case, he's not only on the team to provide with support DPS with his burst, but also acts as the only character that's able to heal on this team. With the Hydro Resonance, I find his heals can be just enough. Beidou is mostly here for her burst and is highly recommended that you at least have her at C1, while C2 is highly valued. Her full counter can be really helpful in sticky situations and stalling out cooldown times as well. With Bennett in Fireworks Childe, things are far more comfortable as you have a more dedicated healer. As for the DPS cycle for this team, you quite simply have your supports activate their burst and let Childe do all the work from there, and rotate as needed. Without a C6 Tartaglia like myself, things can get a little messy with timing everything, with his elemental skill cooldown, not to mention losing my focus every time I get excited by all the effect particles and damage numbers popping all over the screen when playing this team. Just goes to show how much fun I have with this team. For Childe's build, I use a pretty standard build with a 4-piece Heart of Depth, while I use a Viridescent Hunt as a weapon, which I stand by being his best weapon in my opinion. It may not do higher numbers than a Skyward Harp, but the bow's passive is absolutely godly on Childe when in his melee state. I have a hard time not using his weapon on him, and the crit rate made building his artifacts far easier than normal, not to mention I currently have a perfect 2-to-1 crit damage to crit % ratio with it equipped. Talents are even across the board, with his passive talent giving an extra point in his normal attack that helps him and the team. In this team, most mostly him. Fischl here is a DPS turned support for me, so her talents and level are quite high, but her artifacts have much to be desired. I play around with a weapon a lot on Fischl due to the fact that my stringless is stuck on Venti most of the time. Windbloom Ode would probably be the next best thing for support fish, but in my mind I don't want too much EM on my fish, as Oz isn't necessarily the one proccing reactions, although I believe in most cases Oz will, and therefore went ahead and boosted her attack instead, which is a guaranteed increase to Oz's damage. Not to mention that rest is more aesthetically pleasing on her than Windbloom Ode. For talents, you mainly need to focus on her burst and E. I focus on her E first, but the choice is up to you. I went with Thunder Soother on Fish, as there is a lot of electro happening in this team, and the 4-piece bonus should come to effect fairly often. However, I will say Thundering Fury is better, but RNG wasn't on my side when farming for it. Not to mention I also have another electro character in this team to build as well. But before looking at that character, let's take a look at Xingqiu. Xingqiu is pretty standard. A sack sword is his best weapon hands down, and I went with a 2-piece Heart Adept, 2-piece Noblesse to boost his damage, more specifically his burst damage. Feel free to replace the crit circlet with a healing bonus circlet if you feel the need to have more heals. You can also use a 4-piece Noblesse if you want to give an attack boost to the whole team if you prefer, which is what I do on my Bennett if I ever use him over Xingqiu. Talents you want to prioritize is his burst, then his E. Normal attack can stay at level 1 if you so choose. Lastly, and in the case of my Fatal Fury team, at least, Beidou. With a high burst cost of 80 energy, I mostly focus on getting enough energy recharge on Beidou. Favonius Greatsword helps immensely in that regard, even at level 80. For artifacts, I went for an easier to build 2-piece Thundering Fury and a 2-piece Glad, but still have not fully leveled a set on her, and she's still able to help. After ER, I would recommend working on her crit rate to take advantage of the Favonius Greatsword's passive. On this team, you want to focus on her burst, and then her E. Normal attacks can stay completely uninvested at 1 if you like. With this team, I would not change any of the supports at all outside of Xingqiu for Bennett, as I think this set of supports are the most optimal choice together and can do just about anything. In this case, the character that's actually replaceable is Tartaglia. The only reason is because that Fatal Fury support team can work on anyone. My top 2 choices are actually Barbara and Sucrose, and if you want to see that in action, well, you better tap that like button and let your voice be heard in the comments down below, and while you're at it, go ahead and sub to my channel so you know when that upload happens. Now, for Spiral Abyss, you might think that Fatal Fury Childe wouldn't work so well since there's a lot of cryo you have to deal with and this team is lacking in pyro power, and that the Fireworks build would be the way to go. And let me tell you, you are wrong. You just have to be smart about it. The only exception is floor 12. More on that later. When it comes to Spiral Abyss, you just have to be a bit more observant on which half will be better for this team. Avoid Hydro Abyss mages as much as possible, but if forced into it, you have Electro power to deal with them. I would recommend sending Beidou's burst to deal with it, and use Oz making sure to summon him on the Abyss mage. I find using Fischl machine gun auto attack sequence to break the shield the fastest while in this state. Cryo slimes go down relatively easily, Beidou's claymore and Electro tend to break them pretty fast. As for cryo whopper flowers, your main goal when dealing with them is to kill them before they put their shield up, and even then, their shield is easily dealt with by this team. What I absolutely avoid are the Abyss Heralds and Lectors. The Abyss Heralds, being Hydro, prevent Tartaglia and Xingqiu from doing any damage when they are in their shielded state. And although you are able to do electro damage to defeat them, if you aren't able to 100% dodge its attacks, you will lose up on time on electro abilities with increased cooldown from the Herald's attacks. Meanwhile, the Lectors have an electro shield which counters the other half of the team, and even then, Hydro doesn't damage their shields that well neither. If forced to fight one, then I recommend the Lectors, but with the Fireworks variant of the team, with Bennett equipped with a 4-piece Thundering Fury to cheese through the shield. Also, if you aren't amazing at dodging like myself, don't shy away from switching into Beidou to shield damage away, which is what you'll see in this footage. With this team, I can easily manage 35 stars with the previous Spiral Abyss, which is the best my unskilled self can manage with my strongest teams. And with that being said, what do you think of this team? Do you already use it? Do you want to build it? And most importantly, what do you want to see next? Fatal Fury Barbara or Fatal Fury Sucrose? Let me know in the comments down below. And with that being said, I will stop speaking from this point on. Enjoy the rest of the video, and until next time, adieu and goodbye. Peace.